Hey guys, it's Rainey Romero with the lovely law firm here for yet another episode on the Carolina Justice Report. Thank you for joining us today. We are chatting about an almost 70-year-old case that has brought to light some new details, the Emmett Till case. Welcome back. So I'm here with attorneys Sarah Austin and Amy Lawrence, who you already know and love at this point. So ladies, this is something new that's popped up. So correct me if I don't have all the lingo correct, but a new warrant surfaced from this Emmett Till murder back from 1955, right?
Right.
So what do we know about what happened to Emmett Till?
So Emmett Till was lynched in 1955 after a woman named Carolyn Bryant Donham, I think is her name.
Yep.
Accused him of whistling at her and grabbing her, and then she went home and told her husband this happened at the grocery store. Her husband and his brother ended up lynching Emmett Till, which his lynching kind of sparked the whole civil rights movement. So
wow.
It was a big deal. And his mom has been fighting for civil rights and just making sure that nobody ever forgets Emmett Till.
Right.
And his family has set up a foundation, and they have sort of called on the sheriff's office to go dig up the files.
Wow.
Because after Emmett Till was killed, 2 weeks later, the sheriff's department charged her husband and his half-brother, I think his name was Roy Bryant, with the murders, and they were acquitted by an all-white jury only 2 weeks later. And so Emmett Till's family has never really seen the evidence, so they called on the sheriff's department, from what I understand, to go back and dig it all up, and they actually found a warrant for Miss Carolyn Bryant.
Wow.
And for kidnapping that had never been served. She had never been arrested before.
So the warrant came up after the family kept pushing for more information.
All these years later, right?
Yeah, the warrant is from 1955.
And
I'm guessing that they did a freedom of information, or let the family come and look at the file, and as they're digging through, they found this warrant
in a box. I think I read that the sheriff's department kept the boxes of evidence sort of by decade, and it was just by chance they had gone through the entire decade and found this one piece of paper.
Well, and they're claiming that they never saw it prior, right?
Right. They've never seen it prior. They didn't even know at that point. It's my understanding nobody knew that they had enough evidence to even charge her with participating in it, because they had only charged her husband and her half brother, although she was the one that accused him. And there was statements from other witnesses, I guess at the time, that she rode around with her husband and his brother and actually identified Emmett Till as the one who was in the grocery store. And that's when they took him. So she was allegedly involved in this, but then, and there was a warrant. They must have had some kind of evidence of that involvement, but that warrant was never served. And so now she's 80 years old and living in North Carolina, and his family.
Carolyn is.
Yes.
Wow.
And his family is calling for them to serve that warrant from 1955 and arrest her.
Wow.
For her involvement.
Well, and it may be obvious, but we didn't specify that Emmett Till was an African-American child, really. He's 14 years old when this happened.
Just a kid.
Which is just so sad. That's just a sad story, but all too common from that time period. And I assume his mother is now, passed. So I'm wondering who is still fighting for this case from his side.
I'm not sure that she's passed away.
She's not passed.
Wow. I don't think so.
No. And
So 70 years later, she's still around fighting for this. Wow.
Yeah, her kids.
they started a foundation, the Emmett Till Foundation.
Okay.
Her name's Mamie, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So how does this work? I mean, can a case this long, since it's been this long, can that be dug back up and can action still be taken?
I think the Department of Justice has said no. They did an investigation like 15 years ago and said that there was, absent any new evidence, this case cannot be prosecuted. I think the family's position is that this warrant is new evidence.
Yeah.
I think from a legal standpoint, the warrant is evidence that there was evidence.
Right.
But you can't, I think that they can serve her and they can certainly arrest her, but to prove her involvement now, a lot of the witnesses involved are dead.
Right.
That box of evidence that they had still hasn't been recovered. And so to actually prove it in court today,
Very hard.
I think would be very difficult. Although I do think that today's jury might convict her of something like that.
We talk about we've talked about this before this, about, we see Nazis, right, that are being prosecuted. They're 90 years old. And I think the difference is in those cases, and we've seen those documentaries and read about that, is that they're still witnesses. They're still living witnesses to what they did.
True.
And we just don't have that in this case. I wish we did.
Yeah.
I think that a great injustice was done, and Emmett Till deserves so much better.
Well, and they've spent their lives fighting for justice for him, which is something which I think is so admirable as a family and shows so much love, but also so sad that you've lived your life trying to fight this case. Do they have any option legally for this, or no?
I mean, the statute of limitations would have passed on any kind of civil case. And then when you're dealing with those kind of old warrants, it's just like the evidence is not there. It becomes a stale warrant essentially after all these years. And that's what any good defense attorney would be arguing. You know what I mean? There's no evidence to show anything that, even anything happened that they're saying in that warrant, because all the witnesses are gone and dead besides, the defendant.
And as much as I would like to see her face a consequence for her involvement in this, I think it's dangerous as a defense attorney to argue that a stale warrant from 1955 with no evidence to back it up should be served at this point, because that can set a precedent that stale warrants with no evidence can just go be served all the time.
Right.
That the expiration of a warrant is kind of an important thing. It holds the police officers' feet to the fire and the prosecution's feet to the fire that they've got to gather this evidence and really prove their case. And so I'm not sure what
the first thing
is.
a defense attorney would do is ask for a preliminary hearing, which is, what is the probable cause? I'm guessing, and I might be wrong, but I'm guessing those police officers that signed that warrant are no longer alive or around to testify to any of those things. And then all the evidence and witnesses that they were depending on for that probable cause are no longer around either. So I'm not sure we'll ever get past that,
Right.
It's quite a big hurdle. But I think also, beyond just advocating for justice for Emmett Till, his family, especially his mother, who sort of triggered the whole civil rights movement.
Right.
Now, how did that happen, or how did she trigger it?
So the Emmett Till went on vacation to visit his family in Mississippi from Chicago, and he never came home. And they advised her not to do an open casket at his funeral because of the way that he looked. And his mom said, no, we're doing an open casket. And tens of thousands of people came and saw Emmett Till. And the pictures went.
And it sparked.
And 3 months later, Rosa Parks said she wasn't going to give her seat up on the bus. And she attributed what happened to Emmett Till as part of her motivation for taking a stand.
Wow.
Which triggered the whole thing. So beyond that, it's sort of justice, not just justice for Emmett Till, but justice for Black people.
Right.
And I mean, we see it again with, I know we talk about police brutality and stuff, but I think the most comparable case would be Ahmaud Arbery and what happened to him in just 2020.
In Georgia, right?
He was lynched by his neighbors, and the prosecution was going to do the same kind of thing they did to Miss Bryant back in 1955. They just weren't going to bring the charges until that video went viral and the public was outraged in the sort of mini civil rights and forced them to charge those 3 men with his murder. So it's still happening, even as soon as 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And it's probably happening more than we even know about it.
Right. The power of social media does good as much as it does bad, right?
Yeah. I mean,
the good thing about Emmett Till's mom is that she was, it's like when you lose a kid, and I've never lost a child, but you either go bury yourself with your baby, or you channel that grief into something really good.
Right.
And she channeled it into something really great.
Right.
And the domino effect that happened was amazing.
Well, and I was reading an article about that years later, like 50 years later, Carolyn did admit that Emmett had never touched her. And so, I don't know what that means for her. Does that mean that, could anything have been brought up, or could she have gotten in trouble?
I think she admitted it, and then they investigated it. And I had read that a police officer went out to interview her, and like 15 years ago, and she said, no, he did touch me. Like she took that back.
Took it back.
So she's never admitted that she lied
Publicly.
before publicly.
Right. Gotcha.
And so I think that, but I just think, as far as the family, what we know about Emmett Till's family is they never give up.
Yeah.
And so that evidence of that warrant is a sign that maybe there's something else in those boxes. Maybe they'll find the rest of that evidence, and that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You know, for them to find, and hopefully to get a consequence before Miss Bryant passes away.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe she'll admit what she did.
For sure. For sure. Wow. Well, I'm happy that this all came to light because I had never heard of Emmett Till, and to know kind of the history side of it, that it sparked a lot of the civil rights movements, is actually like, you know, a really great thing to know. So, you know, that's a positive piece of this, I guess, is people know that name now more so probably.
Well, they don't teach, and this is why teaching those things in school is so important.
Right.
You know, everybody wants to fall apart about critical race theory, but that's not what's being taught. We're just talking about history. We should know about Emmett Till. These are things that our kids should be knowing about.
Yeah, so that they never happen again. So we're not here talking about Ahmaud Arbery and
Yeah.
all those others whose videos we haven't seen that prosecutors have just sort of brushed under the rug, and police officers or whoever is involved in that kind of stuff. So,
What do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think it's just going to kind of fall away because nothing can be done? Do you think the family's still going to push for different measures? What do you suspect with something like this?
Oh, I suspect they're going to push for sure. If they've been pushing for 70 years, what would make them stop today? You know,
Right. Yeah.
Especially now that they have this warrant. I'm just not sure that it's going to be fruitful.
yeah. I don't think that legally the warrant would stand.
Yeah.
Today. And I don't know that it should stand on its own, just from a legal standpoint. We need to have warrants backed by evidence and witnesses. That's a good process. But I think it is a tragedy that the sheriff's department, when they had this warrant in 1955, did not serve it on Miss Bryant at that point.
Right.
But I also don't know that she wouldn't have been acquitted with her husband as well. So, the whole thing is a tragedy, and
Absolutely.
I don't know that we will ever get justice for Emmett Till in the legal system. But I think that we can keep talking about the impact he's had on the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And getting justice might look like making sure it never happens again. And we've done a pretty horrible job at that, in my opinion. We're getting better, but we're not there. It's still happening.
Right.
And so having these kinds of conversations and the families keeping it at the forefront is really important.
Yeah.
To make us white women aware.
Yep.
And accountable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great discussion, ladies. Thank you so much both for your input. Folks, you can see us for new episodes every Tuesday at 2 p.m. We drop new episodes. Let us know what you think about this. You know, we want to invite you into this conversation. We do check our messages and comments on the YouTube. So let us know in that chat kind of what you think, what you want to hear about for our next episode. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We are everywhere. You can visit us online on our website, justiceslovely.com. We'll see you next week.
When life gets